I want to make a distinction between Donald Trump, the person who says and does racist things, and the notion of a fascist. Because look, if we're just going to use fascist toward anyone we dislike, all right, then the word doesn't actually mean anything.
Anna, why do I not agree? Because so Trump's helpful rhetoric?
No, his rhetoric is awful.
Okay, if you don't want to be called fascist, stop saying fascist things. It's not that hard.
When people called me fascist and other terminologies, I didn't like it. And I don't think it's fitting to anyone to state that the former president is equal to being Hitler.
So TYT is confused on whether Trump is a fascist or not. Let's get into it. All right, so today we're looking at Anna Kasparian and Cenk arguing about whether Trump is a fascist. And I always find these type of discussions to be fascinating because I think in this conversation, you're going to see Anna Kasparian's growth. And what do I mean by that? Well, Anna is having the same conscience of character that I personally had when I became an independent. Now, myself, being from liberal New York, where it's nothing but Democrats and nothing but these liberal policies, you grow up in that environment, so you believe in those causes and you believe in the rhetoric that they put forward. I'm also assuming the same will be true if you grew up in rural America or somewhere where it's more conservative, right? You grew up with those policies and that type of thinking, then when you're an adult, it makes more sense to you to align with people who think the same way. Now, Anna, just like myself, woke up and understood that everything that we were being told when we were down for the left wasn't actually accurate. Matter of fact, a lot of it was BS. And it was BS to keep us voting and deaf, dumb, and blind to the problems with the policies that the left wing had. And you know what? Let me give you an example. Immigration. I was down with the left with immigration. Before Trump got into office, I'm like, yeah, bring everybody in. We can take care of the world. And then I evaluated the situation and said, let's bring everybody in. We can take care of the world. Is crazy. How are you going to pay for these people to eat, to sleep? Who's going to take care of them? No one thought about that when I was up in New York. And that was because the problem of immigration was down at the southern border. So in New York, you didn't really care about those things. It was easy to call the people down there racist for not wanting to let millions of people come across the border and have to take care of them. But it was easier for us in the North, let's just stand on our high horse. Then when the Republicans started sending the immigrants to New York, it opens everybody's eyes to say that, hey, all that stuff that they were talking before about the people in Texas being racist because they didn't want immigrants. Now, the people in New York, the liberal left, found themselves in that same position, not wanting immigrants to come to New York.
We turned this city around in 20 months. And then what happened? Started with a madman down in Texas, decided he wanted to bus people up to New York City. 110,000 migrants. We have to feed, clothe, house, educate the children, wash their laundry sheets, give them everything they need, health care. And this team here, we stated, let's do everything possible before we have to push it out into neighborhoods and communities. Month after month, I stood up and I said, this is going to come to a neighborhood near you. Well, we're here. We're here. We're getting no support on this national crisis, and we're receiving no support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted.
Now, one thing I think is also fascinating about this whole migrant story is that New York started busing migrants out of NYC to Canada, for instance. So New York, who is pro-migrant, who loves migrants, who wanted migrants, decided to turn around, say, we don't want migrants anymore, and then ship them off to Canada. So this is what is going on. This is the hypocrisy that I didn't realize that was going on, but it was staring me in the face. So I say all that to say this. Anna Kasparian has now become like me. She was liberal and has moved to the center right in a lot of places. And now she's on this show that's extremely progressive that still pushes these narratives. So what do you do if you're in a position like that? Well, I think now you have arguments about how even the people who you work for are being disingenuous with their language in their terms. So let's watch Anna and Cenk argue it out.
Donald Trump is deeply racist and he says deeply racist things, okay? I want to make a distinction between Donald Trump, the person who says and does racist things, and the notion of a fascist. Because look, if we're just going to use fascist toward anyone we dislike, all right, then the word doesn't actually mean anything.
You know, as a former professor, I always like to define my terms, especially if we're going to argue about it, because what one person thinks the word may mean may be something totally different than what the other person thinks it means. So here is the definition of fascism. Fascism is a political system based on a very powerful leader, state control of social and economic life, and extreme pride in country and race, with no expression of political disagreement allowed. So now the argument would be, does Trump fit within this definition? First, Trump is a powerful leader, but our political system isn't based on him being a very powerful leader. And this second piece right after the comma, state control of social and economic life, well, that's exactly the opposite of what Trump wants. He, matter of fact, has deregulated the government. He wants them out of economic life. He wants them out of social life. That was the issue with Roe v. Wade and everything, right? Less government. Let the government. You go take care of yourself. Why do we have all these regulations?
Moments ago, President Trump signed bills into law in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. All of the bills involve nullifying various Obama-era rules and regulations. Departments of government affected include the Departments of Defense, Interior, and Education. Let's listen.
It's a child's desk, but that's okay. It's the smallest desk I've ever seen. Very, very glamorous, right?
Now, he has extreme pride in his country and his race, which I personally do too, and there is expression of political disagreement allowed. It's always been allowed. Matter of fact, Trump goes to places where they disagree with him and argues with them. Now, under the definition of fascism, I don't think Trump is a fascist. But now let's hear Anna and Cenk argue about whether it's appropriate to call Trump a fascist, even though he's really not.
Okay, what do you want me to say, Anna? You want me to say wannabe dictator?
Sure, you can say wannabe dictator, but I don't even think he wants to be a dictator.
Of course he does. That's what you do when you lose an election and you go, oh, I got fake electors and I'd like to terminate the Constitution and bring out the tanks and use martial law against American citizens and shoot protesters. I mean, if that's not fascist, then I guess the word just shouldn't exist.
But was he able to do those things?
First of all, his entire cabinet had to threaten, not cabinet, administration, his White House team had to say, we're all going to mass resign if you roll out tanks against American citizens.
Okay, so if you think he's a fascist, wouldn't that justify taking physical action against him?
If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
Now, Cenk loves to use the fact that he said he would use the military to quell protests. But this happens under Democrats too. Let me give you a couple of examples. Number one, Ferguson. They called the National Guard out to go stop the riots in Ferguson. That's the military, right? You call them out to help stop the riots in Ferguson. And that wasn't Obama. That was a political protest. The military was called out because the local police couldn't handle it. Was Obama or the governor of Missouri, were they fascist? Check it out.
And time now for a look through the international headlines for following this Tuesday afternoon. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center.
Eunice, new protests are ongoing in the U.S. town of Ferguson at this hour as the curfew we saw earlier this week was replaced by the presence now of the National Guard.
That's right, Mark. It's the highest card Missouri State Governor Jay Nixon has activated since declaring a state of emergency this past weekend in that region. And to give you some perspective, the last time the Guard was deployed for a civil unrest was back in 1992 for the Los Angeles riots. Our Son Jung-in recaps for us the events leading up to tonight's demonstrations in Ferguson.
So as you can see, when there was a political protest in Missouri, Ferguson, they used the National Guard because the police weren't enough to help. And the same thing happened with January 6th. Matter of fact, here is Nancy Pelosi, and she's going to take responsibility for not having the military at January 6th to prevent what happened. Against, again, protesters that were not Democrats, they were Republicans.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
No, that is not a question of how they had been. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
So under the definition that Cenk wants to put forward, would Nancy Pelosi be a fascist? So Cenk just saying because Donald Trump wants to have the military against protesters, that happens. That's happened multiple times under Obama and under Trump. Matter of fact, Nancy Pelosi was like, we should have had the military for this political protest. That doesn't make her a fascist. So I think sometimes when you're looking at the other person or the other side and wanting them to be as evil as possible, you look past the flaws of your own and look to the flaws of others.
Right, okay, well, Anna, why do I not agree? Because, so Trump's helpful rhetoric?
His rhetoric is...
So this was classic whataboutism, right? My side gets caught saying things that are not true, that are inflammatory, and instead of dealing with that, you know what I say? What about the other guy? That's not a convincing argument. But what it does do is shows you that he doesn't have really any foundation to build his argument on. So the best thing to do is just launch to, well, what about the other side? Well, so what if they're bad? So what if they were murderers? Does that mean it's okay for us to become murderers too and to violate the law? No, right? What's right is right. And if the other person is doing wrong, you call them out. But that doesn't give you the blanket to also do wrong.
Okay, so if you think he's a fascist, wouldn't that justify taking physical action against him?
No, because that doesn't help. That devolves us further into fascism.
Yeah.
They complain about Trump's rhetoric being dangerous, putting people's lives in danger. But then they use the same rhetoric that's dangerous that puts Republican lives in danger. That's why he had 2 assassination attempts. So this whole, I'm okay to call him these things that I know are dangerous, that I know some people are going to look at and say, you know, he needs to be stopped. It's okay for me to say it, but it's not okay for the other side to say it. I think it's the height of hypocrisy.
So, okay, if you don't want to be called fascist, stop saying fascist things. It's not that hard.
Okay.
Not that hard. Oh, here, let me have dinner with Nick Fuentes, who's a Nazi, Kanye, who's a Nazi, and let me say there's good people on the Nazi side. Oh, it could be pro-Confederate guys. Might be guys who are pro-slavery who are good guys. Let me do all of these things. Let me say that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation, a Nazi term that is only used in the past by Nazis, and then say, I'm going to ban Muslims, I'm going to do this and this and this to all the other ethnic groups, and then go, oh, I can't believe you called me a fascist. No, he is a fascist. I'm very happy to call him a fascist.
So Cenk knows that the rhetoric he's using is dangerous. He knows it's not really correct, but he's still going to say it anyway because it's what he believes. Now, if you flip it, he wants the other side to be held accountable for what they say, for the dangerous things they say, putting the people on the other side in dangerous situations, while he, in turn, does the same thing. He's a fascist. He's Hitler. That rhetoric is putting Trump in a dangerous place. So at the end of the day, I think political operatives are always going to be political operatives. You're always going to say the worst thing about the other candidate because you don't want them to get elected. But the truth is a little bit more complex. And I think Cenk has to realize that he's just as bad as the people he's complaining about. Matter of fact, he's even worse because he's still saying it. Well, I think the other people on the other side have tried to take down the temperature. Now, tell me where I'm in the comment section. Tell me, hey, Nate, you just got this one wrong. You just got this one wrong. I definitely want to hear it. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. My name is Nate Delory, and I'm going to see you in the next one.